listening to Your Ultimate Life with Kellan Fluckiger, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hey, welcome to the show today. LA Talk Radio. What a cool place to be. And you know, when I tell people I invite guests on and tell them we're on LA Talk Radio, they love it because it just sounds good. And so I love to be here with you. You know what I'm about. I'm about helping you create your ultimate life. And I've used that phrase now thousands upon thousands of times. And, you know, this is our third year. We're in our third year of this particular broadcast of how to create your ultimate life, how to actually live that life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, where you love every day. You have a purpose that you love and lean into. And that purpose and joy create prosperity of spirit, prosperity of bank account, prosperity in relationships, prosperity in love, prosperity in belonging, prosperity in spirituality and connection to the divine. All of that is possible. And we're going to talk specifically today about how to create your own reality, how to create your life experience. Because you know, the truth of externalities is we have wars going on. We have this war in the Middle East that is bigger now than it has been, but it's been going on for 50 years, 70 years since the end of World War II in little amounts and big amounts. We have a terrible war going on in Eastern Europe. And no matter which side of that you're on, I mean, I can't imagine any reason in the universe why it was okay for Russia to invade Ukraine and decide they were going to take him. Crazy. But I'm not going to talk about politics here. I'm acknowledging that those things happen. We had the hurricanes in the eastern United States that just trashed countless homes and people's lives. And now months later, they're barely digging out. We've had these huge wildfires in LA. And those are, you know, horrifying consequences. Thousands. I heard 11,000 something homes destroyed. And I don't know if that's the right number, but it's big. Amazing. All that stuff happened. Sadness and pain. And that are the big, those are the big things. We have little things going on in your life. Maybe there's a bankruptcy. Maybe there's a betrayal. Maybe there's a failed relationship. Maybe there is someone, one of your kids has just gone completely off the rails and done something, or they're in jail, or they're harming themselves, or whatever. Maybe you have some kind of an addiction issue, or, you know, all those kinds of things are real. And I saw a survey that said that at any given time in a group of people, more than 50% are going through some really, really challenging or difficult thing. So that plus all these externalities, how can we talk about, oh, live your ultimate life, purpose, prosperity, and joy, and it's all in your control? That could easily be something someone says, how can you talk about that? And I'm going to. And here's the truth. Those externalities are going to happen no matter what we do. Illness, betrayal, bankruptcy, economy, elections. In the United States, I mean, I'm in Canada, but my wife and I are both, you know, citizens of both countries, dual national, and we lived for many years in Phoenix, 8 or 9. In 2008 to 16, and now we're up in Canada since the end of 16 to take care of my wife's mother. And so we're here, and I don't know where we're going to go after that. She's 93, and we'll see. But because we're dual national, we pay attention to what's going on in the U.S. And, you know, there was an election 2 or 3 months ago, and there's a lot of people that are upset about the results, a lot of people that are thrilled. The tone of the conversation certainly changed. Lots of upheaval. And some people find that, distressing. Some find it liberating. The question is, are we required? Is it immutable that those things that happen outside of our control decide whether or not I'm happy? Is that direct? So crap happens, I'm miserable. Things I don't want happens, I suck. It sucks. I'm angry or frustrated. Is that connection undisputed, like, you know, ironclad, or is there a space where we get to decide? Now, there's a book that I really enjoyed called The Wedge. And this was written by a guy who's talking about He calls it a wedge, but it's the space. And his example was extreme athletes, people that endure freezing cold and long runs and incredible performances that the thought of which is just daunting, terrifying. Ugh. And what in the world makes these particular types of individuals have the courage and power to keep going on when others just flat fall and fail? So that's a real interesting question. One of the Navy SEALs was quoted as saying, it isn't the physical strength that lets you get through that particular extremely rigorous training. It's up here, the mental toughness. So this book called The Wedge, I think it's written by Scott Carney, and it's interesting, explores all this, what's up with these people that can go beyond what can be physically tolerated. And his thesis is, and he demonstrates it, there's a wedge, there's a space between the input and the response. So I'm running and I get to the end of my physical endurance and I'm experiencing pain, or I think I am. And the pain is not actually in my leg, it's in my head. There's a receptor and it goes up there, and we're not going to talk about physiology right now. But there is a space between the input and my response. And we're mostly not aware of that. We don't realize that the input, there's a space. I get to perceive and then choose. Now, it's true, and it's scientifically demonstrated and everything else, but I want to extend it not just to physical things. I want to extend it to spiritual or energetic or mental or, physical, emotional things. For example, someone says something to you. It's insulting, it's not true, and it potentially could damage you in some way. Now, that is the input. That is reality. It happened. The automatic response, the one without thinking, is to get angry, to lash out, to smash their head in, or to hire a lawyer, or all of the above, right? And the truth is there is a space. There is a space. And that space is what I want to talk about in creating your reality and fashioning your life experience. And here's what I know from my own journey on this. This is something I've been working on now for 17, going on 18 years. And I've read The Wedge and dozens of other books that talk about our ability to choose. And it's reflected in sayings that have been around for hundreds or even thousands of years. As a man or woman thinketh, so is he or she. In other words, what we think about is what manifests, to use the cute buzzword, in our life. Now, we can rail against that or we can use it. Now, there's nothing that I want more, really, nothing that Kellan wants more, not my own comfort or riches. There's nothing that I want more than for you to take sovereign control of your life and create ultimate joy, purpose, prosperity, and joy. And everything that I do, every show, LA Talk Radio, every podcast, and if you want to hear that, I've got a podcast called Your Ultimate Life, and I've got 950 something episodes. We'll hit 1,000 this year. Stoked about that. I just had last week on this show, LA Talk Radio, I had a cool guest, and his way of adding good to the world is he's 3D printing houses to address the housing shortage. And he uses them for something called glamping, which is glamorous camping. I had to have him define that for me. He uses it for that and for addressing housing shortages and, all kinds of stuff. And he's getting contracts now with cities and states and stuff to build them because they're way cheaper, 30 or 40% cheaper and 70% faster to construct. And they are more durable and all kinds of good stuff. And I'm not going to repeat last week's episode. Go listen to that if you want to hear. But that is his way. And he is so excited. His heart is lit up. And he's a serial entrepreneur. This is the 4th business that he started. And it's growing like crazy. And it's going to, like the projections, based on what's happening in the shortage of 4 to 10 million units, he's going to have a monster business in 2 or 3 years that's worth $700, $800 million. He even told us where we could go invest if we wanted to. And I'm not endorsing any investment. I'm not trying to do that. But I have known him. I met him a little while ago, and I'm stoked about it. Not just about the investment opportunity, but about what he's doing. And because he's choosing it, that's his purpose, and he's happy. He's excited. And you could tell listening to him, he was so excited just talking about it for the whole show. And you can be that. Maybe you already are. Maybe you're already driven by purpose and you already have all the prosperity you can stand. And maybe joy is just overflowing from your pores every day. I don't know. But 99% of the people I meet aren't. They're not clear about purpose. They have some ideas, and they certainly don't have the prosperity they want. Universally, I need more money. And the joy is like tied to that. I'll be happy when I find my purpose and I get the cash. Then I'll be happy. There's a book called The Happiness Equation. And he says, if you do all this stuff, work really hard, then you'll have a bunch of stuff, position and money, and then you'll be happy. And he turns that on its head and he says, if you're happy first, just because you decide to be, that makes you perform better, and then it's easier to have stuff. So he says it's completely backwards. He was a senior vice president at a Walmart Corp, I think, and I heard him speak at an event and bought that book, and it's interesting, The Happiness Equation. But it's consistent with everything that you see in this world of personal development and self-creation, quantum physics and everything. I just was made acquainted with a book called Reality Transurfing, which is just another way of saying exactly the same thing. You create your reality. You can pick the world. The energetic output of your mind actually matters and does stuff. Okay? Now that's measurable in the lab. You can argue with me and you're wasting your breath. What I want to do today is I want to talk to you about how to do that. How to do it. Because it's easy to just talk up here and say you can create whatever you want, purpose, prosperity, and joy. And we don't get down, to the how. So I have a little acronym that I use, WIP cubed OS. So WIP cubed OS, and it stands for worth, identity, possibility, purpose, power, ownership, and sovereignty. Okay, and we're just going to use that, and there's 1,000 of those kinds of frameworks. WIP cubed OS, and we're going to talk about this today, and I want you to think about, if you're willing to play with me here, think about how this can help you move toward creating your own life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. And one of the diseases that we have is we want, like I used this picture today, I hope you're watching the video, one behind me is of a magician, and he's waving his hands, and it's hard to see the whole thing. But magic is appearing, stars, and, we want stuff to happen like that. We want there to be an easy button where automatically and perfectly we do Harry Potter. We wave a wand and zap, piles of gold are created, or someone is banished to wherever, or someone suffers in the way that we think they ought to suffer. We've judged them. And that isn't how anything works. Nothing grows that way. Nothing is created that way. In the United States, there's a fellow named Elon Musk who's in the news a lot now, and he is, taking the responsibility to try to end waste in government. And whether he's doing a good job doesn't matter. I'm talking about him because everybody knows about who he is. If you follow the story of his creation, he became the wealthiest. I don't know this, but somebody said he's the richest man in the world. Tesla and SpaceX and satellites and, incredible numbers of companies and creations. And he started out not there at all. He's created that. Well, so can you. So let's start with the worth. You are a divine being. You may be angry about that. You may scream at God because you say, I'm not worth anything. If I was worth anything, he would have given me whatever. But the truth is we are where we are. I am where I am and you are where you are. And we can either stay there and bitch, or we can start moving in a direction. those that accept what is right now, not to stay there, but stop fighting with reality and say, okay, what is my next step? You want to get an education? What is my first step? You want to learn a skill? What is my first step? You want to learn to speak in public and give killer talks and, be a speaker? What is my first step? You want to write a book about your life experience and the awesome things you've created? What is my first step? We want to wave a wand and have it done. Now, one of the things I love to do, because I've written 20 books, is help people tell their story and write books. So this thing right up here, dreambuildwriteit.com, is a challenge that I'm holding later here in February. It starts February 24th. If writing a book or creating a product from your life experience is something you want to do, go there, because that's exactly what for you. It is for you. If you want to write a book or tell your story or help people from your own life experience, that's what I'm doing. You know my story. I struggled for decades with depression, addictions, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And in the last 17 years, I've overcome that. I've gotten healthy. I've become a coach, and now I serve and lift and bless people. And I'm going for 300 million this year, which I will reach. To do what? To help you understand that you have infinite capability. Your worth is without question. I don't care where you are right now. When I was in the midst of my depression and addictions and stuff, if someone had asked me about my worth, I would have said 0, less than 0. And things happened, and I began to take steps in a different direction, just like I'm talking about. And there's no one that can stop you. I don't care if you don't have any support around you. Get away from that situation, because every moment we have the choice to stay where we're at and bitch, or move in a new direction. Move in a new direction. And even if your physical circumstances, let's say you're in jail, or let's say you are ill and in the hospital, your mind creates your experience. Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years, and afterwards came out and became the president of South Africa and, participated, created the end of the apartheid injustice and, moved forward and created stuff. That was 27 years. And most of us don't sit there in a jail for 27 years or anything even close. And here's the thing. He's no more magic than you or me. What he did do is take the steps that we're about to talk about. So number one, your worth is not in question. You're created by the same God as Nelson or me or anyone else. The real issue is, what am I going to do with that knowledge? If I have had people, I've worked with people who have the idea that if I'm so cool, I'm just going to stand here and be cool. And everybody's going to recognize that coolness, and they're going to come and elevate me and give me money and stuff. That doesn't work that way. We have to create something of value. We have to serve. We have to do something that mattered. Now, Nelson's example was he wanted to end apartheid. Gandhi wanted to liberate India. And yes, those are legendary figures, but they're not better than you or me, and they're not more powerful. They became powerful because they refused to settle for what they had. So you're the architect of your life. If you argue with that, you're going to stay where you're at. If you accept it and say, what's the next step? You can create whatever you want. So you can be a passive participant or an active creator. Here is the next key. Your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions determine your outcome. Now, that's easy to say and go, yeah, I understand that. But I want you to think about this. If I think of myself as out of shape, I'll never be healthy, whatever, because maybe I've had some illness, or maybe I've let myself get heavy and out of shape, and I did that in my 30s, then I can stay there, or I can change my thinking. And here's what happened to me. I had young kids then, and I thought, I'm not going to be that fat dad that can't play with his kids. I'm just not going to do that. And so that was the thought. And then I believed that I could do that because I hadn't been fat before. I said, I can undo this, even though it's been several years in the making, sedentary job and all the rest. So I started taking actions a little at a time, walking in the morning, a little bit more vigorous. And I re-enrolled in martial arts, which I'd done earlier in my life, and kept going. And gradually I lost 90 pounds and got in the most spectacular shape of my life. But it took thought, belief, and action. And it took a year of work. And so that's just one example. Your free will is yours. No one can take that from you. Now, if you're in jail, you can't do some of the things, but your head is the starting point. Viktor Frankl, in a Nazi concentration camp, noticed that some people there were broken down by it, and others were spent their time and energy lifting and blessing others. Same camp, same starvation, same. It's all that internal choice. So understanding, believing, choosing to lean into that infinite worth that you have. If you want to argue with that and say, yeah, that doesn't matter, then you'll stay where you are. So embrace your infinite worth. Your identity as a divine being. That's a true thing. The only question for me and you is, what am I going to do with it? So carrying resentment or self-judgment doesn't help. One of the things I had to learn was self-forgiveness. I wrote a book on forgiveness, not to tell you what to do, but because I needed it and I wanted to document what I learned and what I experienced as I did that. If forgiving yourself or blaming yourself for past things is a problem, or forgiving others for stuff they've done to you is a problem, read the book, Forgiveness, A Journey of Courage to a Place of Freedom and Power. It's on Amazon. Those are some of the little steps to take to start creating your life. Now, one of the things that I hear is they don't deserve it. Well, they may not. Forgiveness is for you. You forgiving someone else is to bless you. It's to lift and bless you. It's to unleash your power. So they don't need to, I don't know. If someone did something to you, and lots of people did stuff to me, and I did lots of mistakes, things too. During my addiction years, I was a lousy partner, and I was a lousy dad, and I was a drug addict. I made a lot of money, but I was still not anything to write home about as a person. That forgiveness has brought me to a place where my own personal commitment is to forgive everyone, everything, all the time. I don't know enough to actually judge, and I'm busy enough working on who I'm being in the world, to judge somebody else. And I find that lifts a great weight, and it moves me toward joy. I spend zero time worrying about what anybody did or didn't do. Trusting that they thought they should have, even if it harmed me. Okay? I have all the time happened to me. People said they were going to do something and they don't. I was depending on it. I'm disappointed. Sometimes that's a little thing and sometimes it's a big thing. Like $100,000. $100,000. Well, ding, disappeared. Okay. I spend zero time fussed about that because it doesn't help in terms of who I'm being in the world. And my commitment is to reach 300 million people, you, and help you realize your worth, your identity, your possibility, so that you can create what you want. Now, the next piece I want to talk about, after your identity and your worth, right? That's the message. Your worth is infinite, your identity is divine, and your possibilities are limitless. The question for me and for you is, are you going to do something about it? Now, let's talk about what the something is. One of the books I wrote is called The Results Equation. From Dream to Done in 5 Simple Steps. Everything you want, whether it's to lose 90 pounds like I did, or create $1 million like I've done a bunch of times, and so have a zillion other people, no matter, or, whatever your goal is, it consists of a bunch of steps, right? And the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. So a choice to organize those steps and take them is the key. So I wrote the results equation to help with that. Because when I was doing consulting work for 30 years, from 77 to 2007, I was very, very successful. And I had created a system to get things done. And I turned that system into something called the results equation. And I got paid a lot of money for what I did. So I've given you the results equation in that book, the 5 steps from dream to done in 5 simple steps. And the unique thing about that book, because there's a million books about how to get stuff done and setting goals and all that, the unique thing is it is particularly geared to individuals or entrepreneurs with small companies where you wear 57 million hats and you have lots to do yourself and you're struggling with delegating and finding people and making enough money to do all that. It's written for you because that was me. And so when you work for a company and you've got a big project to do, there's departments and organization and all that stuff. And when you're alone, there isn't. So what do you do then? Well, then besides the actual steps, there's motivation and there is internal stories and life gets in the way and there's belief systems. I'm not good enough. It won't work. Nobody will read it if you're writing a book. All of that's at play. And so I wrote the results equation to deal with all of that. Not only the steps required to get a project done, but also the internal work to get rid of the barriers, the stories, the blocks, the nonsense. And I say nonsense because it's not true. Fear. People are afraid. They're afraid of writing a book or speaking or putting themselves out in public or posting or making videos or whatever. They're afraid of it. And what they're afraid of is being embarrassed, looking stupid, doing it wrong, being ridiculed, being judged. They're afraid. Well, fear is a construct of the mind. You can't bring me a cup of fear. It's real, and we let it blow up to infinite proportions. Consequently, I wrote another book called Walking Without Fear. Why did I write that? Because I had so much experience with fear getting in my way of doing anything. Always afraid, always making excuses, doing the things that, oh yeah, it's important, but it wasn't really the thing, right, that you need to do to get your project done or to create the progress you want. It's like picking out great shoes over and over again instead of running or going to the gym, right? Getting ready, instead of taking the action. So I wrote the results equation, and it applies to anything. Fixing a relationship, losing weight, creating a relationship with God, making $1 million, getting all the clients you want. It applies to anything because the process from getting from A to B is exactly the same. The steps are different depending on what you're doing. The process to build a beautiful garden is not the same as to paint your house. The process to fill a coaching practice is not the same as the process to go to law school and graduate. But the steps, the activities, the mindset, the approach is the same. I said the process is different. The process is the same. The steps are different because you're doing something different. So if you have trouble getting organized, keeping accountability, get the results equation and get good coaching. Like the question for you and me is, do you really want this? Because I have gone from destroyed, addicted, ruined, ready to commit suicide, tried a couple times, to living that life that I keep talking about, purpose, prosperity, and joy. I love my life. I love every day. It's the most beautiful thing I can imagine. Can hardly imagine anything more fun, more joyful. And my commitment to reach you and reach 300 million people is as real as the breath that I breathe. And I love every minute and every piece of it. But I walked there one step at a time, and I've laid out for you in these books and today and in 1,000 other places how I did that and how you could do that. My whole business is helping you realize who you are, giving you the tools and the processes to get done what you want, and then offering the support and coaching and encouragement and framework so that you get over the goal line. Because the real measure is, did you get it done? Did you get over the goal line? Did you get the prosperity you want? Did you get the sale? Do you feel the joy you want to feel? That's the end game. So the steps of the results equation are not mysterious. It's understanding where you are, creating the power to move, creating a creative vision for your future, organizing a courageous plan, and then relentless execution. But the power is in the doing. So if that organization and procrastination and overwhelm and stuff is your bugaboo, the results equation is the answer. If fear is your bugaboo, your barrier, walking without fear, maybe all of them. I wrote them for me. like I've written 20 books, right? And every one of them was because I'd go through these experiences in my effort to get out of where I was and go to the new place. And after I would go through these experiences and this work, and I hired lots of coaches and did all the typical things. I didn't get transported to a magic mountain, and suddenly anything's fixed. Nothing grows like that. But as I did the work, I thought, wow, this could really be helpful. This could serve somebody. I'm going to write this book. And I wasn't an author at all when I was back in my executive career. I wasn't an author at all. I'm sorry, my timer went off. I wasn't an author at all. I didn't think of myself as an author. And then I started writing because I thought I got to document this stuff. I didn't even start writing books till I was 52. I've written 20. All right. Fear, like I said, is a false barrier. You can get rid of it if you want, but you have to do the work. The next thing I want to talk about is your PTAC, personal truth document, because the results equation only matters if you have a goal, if you have something that is important to you. And here's a fundamental question. I was on a podcast yesterday of someone else's, and we were talking about how these things get done. And we're looking for practical, just literal down-to-earth steps. And here's the discipline sort of question. Change is often, if not always, uncomfortable. So when you look at your life and what you wish you had, wishes don't get anything. Work gets stuff. And work is only meaningful when you have a goal. Like if you're going to paint the room, you have in your mind exactly what it's going to look like when it's painted, right? All the things are done. You've got the tape off. If you use tape, it's pretty. You've got a mess cleaned. If there was any mess, it's cleaned up. It's beautiful. You've got the furniture back in. It's perfectly complemented like you want. It's like, yeah, I got that. Look at that. It's done. That kind of thing keeps you moving, right? When painting gets boring or you get tired or your arm gets tired or whatever. So that kind of clear vision of where you're trying to go is an essential starting point, especially when you're doing bigger or more difficult things, because that vision is what keeps you going. Now, I have a document called a PTAC, Personal Truth and Commitment. It's a very personal, immensely powerful document. When I recite it, the walls light on fire. Angels sing. And it was difficult and complex, not complex, but difficult and soul-searching to create. But in the doing of that, I have a complete vision. My 300 million came from that vision. That vision is so powerful. It's 1,000 times powerful than the joy of seeing a completed painted room. 1,000,000 times. When I look at that document about my future state and vision, I get so excited. Sometimes I weep with joy. Sometimes I tremble because I'm excited. I want it. I feel it. I see it. I need it. Creating that kind of vision keeps you going through discouragement, through setbacks, through naysayers, through the nagging voice in your head. And I found that creation was one of the most fundamental and powerful things that I'd ever done. So I wrote a book about that too. It's called Living with Purpose and Power. And it talks about how to find your vision, how to find it, and then how to describe it so powerfully that every time you read it, you bleed it. Every time you say it, you memorize it. It becomes woven in your DNA. And so that's what I meant by all the books that I've written are just because I discovered stuff in my own quest to go from here to here in my purpose, prosperity, and joy. And I thought, wow, this could really help. And I find it to be the most powerful thing I help clients do, because when they are connected to that vision, nothing gets in the way. Discouragement, setbacks, financial reversals, illness, doesn't matter. Those things happen, but it's like, I don't care. I'm going around it. Yeah, I'm delayed. I'm slowed down. I'm moving slower because I don't feel good or I'm sick or, my house burned down. We've got these fires in LA that just burned down a zillion houses. I've got a friend that lives out there, and he saw some posts on Facebook, and I know they're not hype because I know him, and he said, we're going to rebuild and we're going to do better. and his vision was up and his energy was up and his love was clear, and he was standing next to the rubble of nothing. Every single thing was gone. So, and that was a choice. It was a choice about how to look at this instead of throwing up his arms and screaming and saying disaster, unfair, whatever. And yeah, there was bad planning and bad action on the part of the city and the Department of Water Resources and reservoirs that should have been built and on and on and on, and plenty of things to point blame at and scream and rail. And no, it's not fair. And his choice was to say, whatever about all that, I'm going to create my life with power and leadership and beauty. Wow. And, you know, that could be hype in some people's social posts. I happen to know him, so I know it's not. And it's inspiring and wonderful, but that was a choice. And it comes out of his own vision and declaration of who he is. So there's a book about that one too, called Living with Purpose and Power. Now, what I found after I created that kind of document is it didn't have any power unless I made it part of my daily life. Because lots of times you'll go to a really inspiring conference, Tony Robbins or some other event where you jump up and down and you're all excited and you write these powerful statements and you leverage yourself, put yourself in difficult situations and force yourself to perform. That's all good, except it doesn't last unless you create a process to re-energize every day. Now, we go to sleep. We die every night and recreate every morning. I don't know why we're created that way, but we are. And so just like an athlete who's ready to perform, they warm up and then they go do their skill. As a pianist, which, you know, I performed a lot. You warm up first, warm your fingers up, and get ready. Why? So you perform well. Well, every single day only happens once. Every single day is some little step toward where we're trying to go. And so why wouldn't you warm up? Meaning bring yourself to peak emotional and spiritual state. Why not? Why would you want to live any day sort of half-baked? Well, I don't. And when you think about it, I'm sure you don't either. So there's a process, and that's also in that book, Living with Purpose and Power, about how to do that every single day so that you are aware of that wedge, your ability to choose in every circumstance, even ones that suck. Your ability to create your life is infinite, but most of us just don't do it. And so Living with Purpose and Power is a book that I wrote to both teach you how to create a vision document that's not just a vision document, but it's a powerful declaration that reaches into eternity, and how to take that infinite power and weave it into your daily DNA so that even mundane daily stuff is infused with the celestial infinite energy that drives you now that you have that kind of vision. Now, I want you to think about a time in your life when you just were dedicated to something. You were going to do this thing come hell or high water. What would it be like if you had that feeling every day and you had a vision that was so beautiful and attractive? You just were all over it all the time. And it was joyful and fun, not stressful and hard. And you might think I'm crazy, but that is possible because you're a divine being and you have infinite power. We're just not doing it. And in the process, in the last 17 years, since 2007, I turned my life around. I have learned and implemented and exercised how to make this happen, make it real, make it vibrant. And it works every time, every day. So Living with Purpose and Power would be your book, if that's the thing. And that's the thing I wrote to document what I did and what I help people do to create and own their power. Okay? Because the message of your divinity and your identity as a divine being, right? And your worth is infinite. That's good, but it doesn't do anything unless you do something with it. And the method, results equation, walking without fear, forgiveness, all those things are processes to unburden, to empty your cup of negative things. And Living with Purpose and Power helps you create, helped me, and I offer it to you it helps you create that infinite reach, vision that drives you every day. All right. So And then the daily creation process is essential because otherwise, we just roll into the day half-assed, half-baked. I get up and I look at my emails and, I get all caught up in scrolling and doom scrolling and watch the news and, oh, crap. Why would you waste any day, not even one, like that? And if you decide today is just a day of rejuvenation and you go out and you simply rejuvenate and sit, looking at the trees or whatever, that's fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about frantic busyness. I am not frantically busy at all. I love every minute of every day, and I get to meet so many new people and reach my 300 million with this message and the method and the mastery. Now, the last two things I want to talk about is mastery is ownership and sovereignty. Ownership and sovereignty. One of the myths that we have is we have this idea that we don't really own our lives, that they're covered in obligations to others. Well, I have to do this and I have to do that. I would invite you to get the word obligation out of your life. And that might sound scary, but you're not obligated to do anything. And in fact, the word obligation carries the seeds of resentment. Carries the seeds of resentment, because when I say I have to do something, it almost always feels like, oh, I'd rather be doing something else. What if you never felt that? Here's how to do that. Empty your calendar. Empty it. And only put those things back that you choose to do, that you're committed to do. Now, you might put the same things back. Go to work. I have to go to work because I've got to pay bills. What if you still instead said, I get to go to work. It provides me the money I need to enjoy my life. It's just an attitude shift. But when I do that, I don't have to, and I do it with, dishes or garbage, taking out the garbage or housekeeping or whatever, shoveling snow. I look at it as an opportunity because I choose to. And this goes to that wedge thing we talked about from the beginning. You don't have to have one obligation or one negative feeling from now till the rest of your life. Now, I see these little glitches in the video, and I'm sorry, they're just there. I want you to eliminate the idea of obligation. You own your life. If you have made promises to people and they have now turned into albatrosses, obligations, get that feeling out of your life. One of two ways. Either quit doing it or change your attitude. Now, quitting something may have consequences. If I quit my job, I got to figure out how to pay bills a different way. So you may decide, you know what, I'd rather keep that job. Well, then I invite you to keep it with gusto and with love. And you can be looking for a different job if you think there's something else to do that's more fulfilling and joyful. Great. Go do that. But do it on purpose. Do it as the owner of your life, not the victim of your life, because you really own it. And if you give it up to victimhood, that's your choice, right? Okay. The last thing is I want to emphasize your sovereignty. Like nobody's coming. Nobody's going to come and fix your life, or nobody's going to come and rescue me or you. You're the king, the queen. You're in charge. You can give that up. You can abdicate the throne and let your life be governed by external circumstances. And lots of people do. They complain bitterly about media or politics or economics or health or garbage in the food or relatives or family or, unjust this, that, and the other. And I'm not even saying those things aren't all true, but I'm inviting you to consider that you have the opportunity to shape your life. And here's what happens when you do. You love your life. You stop fighting against what is and you start creating with what is. Instead of a complainer, you become a creator. Complainers accomplish nothing. Creators change the world. Now, I said last before, this is the last of the last. I want to talk to you about one other thing, and that is about your gift. People often ask me, how do I make money doing what I want? Do what you love and the money will follow. No, it doesn't. And there's books written say no and yes and whatever. The most important, most powerful, and most lucrative thing you and I have to offer the world is a story. And I don't mean a made-up story, the true story about how you got where you are. If you're listening to this, then you're a person who loves others, who wants to serve, who wants to add good to the world and feels the yearning to do that. And you're thinking, how do I enjoy my life more? How do I create the wealth that I really need, not just to barely get by, but to really enjoy life and add good to the world more powerfully, reach more people, etc. If you're listening to this show, that's you. Well, the most powerful thing you have to do that, to make impact in the world and income, to create wealth, is to tell your story, the story of how you got where you are. And I wrote a book for that called The Story Arc. And it's to help you write a book, create a keynote, create a workshop, create a coaching program. But the purpose is to organize and think about, what have you learned? What have you overcome? What challenges have you refused to give in to? What injustices, the ravages of adversity, the fury of injustice, and the pain of loneliness? How do you transmute those into the pure gold of love, forgiveness, and service? And when I say pure gold, I mean gold, value, money, and impact in the world. You have it, and you're worth it, and most people aren't doing anything about it. So I invite you to do three things. I invite you to get a hold of me. I invite you to go look at this website, dreambuildwriteit.com. Join me at the end of the month. I invite you to take sovereign control over your thoughts. Stop blaming others or circumstance. It doesn't fix anything, and it doesn't make you feel good, and it doesn't put you or me in a position of power, does it? It drains our energy. It drags us down. Take sovereign control of your life. Your ultimate life is available to you. You can live with purpose, prosperity, and joy every day. I know that because I do. And I started from the bottom of the canyon as a suicidal addict who'd lost everything. And I made a choice to just start a little at a time and to start walking in the direction of that star that looked so far away it was impossible. I got the help I needed. I made the choices. I had the setbacks. And I have coached and helped so many. Now, I would love to tell your story. I would love to help you write a book. I'd love to have you here on the show, like I had the fellow last week, and I've got a couple more lined up for the next few weeks. But there are people that are taking the steps. So your practical steps today, define your real goals. Not just, I want more money, I want to be healthy. Like, do you have a picture of that finished room, painted, done? Can you describe exactly what your life looks like and how you add good to the world? If you can't, that's the place to start. If it seems impossible, do two things. Resolve right this minute to take fierce and powerful ownership. You're the sovereign king or queen of your life. Claim it. Right here, right now. Stop giving away your authority, your power, your attitude, your feelings to others. Take ownership every day. Looking at the book and reading and implementing the book, Living with Purpose and Power, will guide you exactly how to do that. The story arc will guide you and teach you exactly how to take your life story and turn it into a gold mine. My mission is to help you do that. Reach out and let's talk. I want you to have everything you dream. I know you can. I know you can. I love you. I believe in you. And I know without any hesitation, three things. Your life is a miracle. You are capable of anything. And the third one is, nothing can stop you from starting right here, right now, right where you are with whatever challenges and barriers you have, to move. Nothing can stop you from moving from there to the goal line so you can live your ultimate life.
You're listening to Your Ultimate Life with Kellan Fluckiger, only on LA Talk Radio.